This episode is brought to you by Progressive Commercial Insurance. Business owners, meet Progressive Insurance. They make it easy to get discounts on commercial auto insurance and find coverages to grow with your business. Quote in as little as 6 minutes at progressivecommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company. Coverage provided and serviced by affiliated and third-party insurers. Discounts and coverage selections not available in all states or situations.
CRM was supposed to improve customer relationships. Instead, it's shorthand for can't resolve much. Which means you may have sunk a fortune into software that just bounces customer issues around but never actually solves them. On the ServiceNow AI platform, CRM stands for something better. With AI built into one platform, customers aren't mired in endless loops of automated indifference. They get what they need, when they need it. Bad CRM was then. This is ServiceNow.
I've been coaching in some form or another since I was 14 years old. I turned 34 this year, so I've been doing it for 20 years and it doesn't feel like a job. It's something I love to do every day.
Welcome to this episode of Sprint-Based Football, presented by Titan GPS. Founded and based in Texas, Titan GPS is your key to sprint-based football success. Designed specifically for high school football, Titan tracks the metrics that matter, like top speed, explosive acceleration, and even the powerful truck stick, speed times weight, for the ultimate performance insight. Whether it's optimizing practice, spotlighting players with 3D highlights, or giving recruiters verified in-game stats, Titan delivers. And with no minimums to get started, Titan walks you through every step. Message them on X @Titan Sensor to learn more. Titan GPS. Performance measured, potential unlocked. Hey, this is the Sprint-Based Football Podcast, and I am Tony Holler. Today, I'm very excited to bring onto the show a guy named Jesse Chinchar, who is a football coach in Florida that we have gone back and forth with for maybe 5 years, but we've never actually met in person. But in today's world, we get to do those kinds of things. So Jesse, you are coaching where now?
I'm the head coach at St. Petersburg Catholic here in St. Pete, Florida.
And that is a private school?
Yep, we're a 1A private high school.
Okay, now you've had an interesting journey. Explain how you got here.
Yeah, so my journey started at a small school called Clearwater Academy International, which is where I attended as a student. It's a K through 12 institution. And when I got there, they didn't have any type of football, no flag football, no tackle football. So me and my best friend in middle school begged them to get flag football, fell in love with that. And then eventually when we got to high school, we begged them to get high school football, tackle football. And funny enough, the only thing we could get numbers for is 6-man tackle football. So we suited up in 2008, which is longer ago than I care to admit. We played our first game with 8 players playing 6-man tackle football. And that program kind of grew and grew. And I came back to coach the team. By the time I was coaching, it was 7-man tackle football. We went from 7 to 8. And then in 2016, we expanded and went to 11-man tackle football and turned that program from an itty bitty school that really only had resources for 6-man football and started playing national powers and, playing the big dogs like Lakeland and Venice and traveling all over the country for games and kind of transformed that whole program into something that was nationally known.
Do you think that your experience with football, the flag level, 6-on-6, 8-man football, how did that affect the way you saw the game, or what did you learn?
Yeah, I like that question because I always view myself as somebody who's willing to do things differently, and I didn't grow up in football. I actually played more years of baseball than I played of football growing up. Found football at about 13, 14, played a bunch of flag football. My parents weren't really athletes, it just kind of became my own thing. And like you said, flag football. And when I was 17 years old and playing in high school, I was also coaching semi-pro football. So I always kind of had a mind for, just different types of games and different, environments to learn in. And I think I saw a lot of right ways to do things, a lot of wrong ways to do things, but it's definitely kind of uniquely forged just the way that I view the game. And like I said at the beginning, just willing to do things different. I'm not going to do things, the old adage of that's the way we've always done things like that. It's like nails on a chalkboard to me. So I think that's definitely shaped my viewpoints.
And that's obviously why you're on this podcast, is because
Yeah.
sprint-based football is a different way to do things. This international school, it was Clearwater International?
Clearwater Academy International. So funny enough, it's not that everybody's international or anything like that. There's just always been an international component to it. When I took over, we'd have about 2 or 3 international kids a year. By the time I left, we had almost 30 international kids on the football team every single year. So we poured the coals on that fire of the international piece and really grew that, which was one of my favorite parts.
Now, did you actually recruit football players from other countries?
We did, because we were independent. So we were kind of like IMG in that we could recruit. Now we were, people always said that once we got really good, they're like, oh, you guys are IMG. We don't want to play you. And I'm like, come down to little Clearwater Academy and tell me to my face that we're IMG, because we didn't have a practice field. We didn't have a weight room on campus. We didn't have a stadium. We didn't have a locker room. We had no resources. So we had to outsource and get these things from other different third parties and do all that stuff. But yeah, we made it happen.
So you played this incredible schedule where you actually traveled out of state?
Yeah, we went a couple times, we played Elder in the Pit up in Ohio, and we played in Texas and all that fun stuff.
And you actually played IMG, right?
Yeah, we played not their national team, but we played their B team.
Yeah, how many teams do they have at IMG?
I think they have 3 right now. And then I just saw a post that they're going to bring back post-grad football as well. So that they could do almost anything that they want over there. That place is pretty amazing.
And so if you were playing at such a high level, you probably had several players that went on to college ball.
Yeah, we've sent about 70 guys to Division I from the periods of 2018 to 2023. My last year at Clearwater Academy, we had 19 guys signed Division I scholarships.
19 guys off of one team?
Yeah. The senior class was 21.
Oh, my goodness. That's fantastic. And what's crazy is that school is no longer open.
Yep, that's crazy. We just... Like I was saying before, resource-wise, no practice field, no stadium, no weight room, nothing, it really was and we say it all the time, I'm still at great relationships with everybody at that school. They're like family to me. Like, it's not crazy that it's over. It's crazy that it happened, and like, if you weren't there to be a part of it, that doesn't really make sense. Cause like from the outside looking in, when you're sending kids to college and beating teams like Lakeland, and it just seems like, oh, you got to keep going, but it just didn't make sense long-term for the vision of the school, just being how small a school it is.
So when your gig there was over, you became an offensive coordinator somewhere, and then is this your first year at St. Pete Catholic?
Yeah, first year. So I did a year at Tarquin Springs High School as the offensive coordinator, which was really nice to take a step back and not be the head coach for a change of pace. And then this one came open and they interviewed me for it, I believe, at the beginning of December. And just before the Christmas break, I took the job.
How does your talent level, it can't be nearly as good, right?
Oh, we're not, I love my guys, but we had 19 guys in the senior class that signed D1 scholarships. Like I've not seen too many teams that are that good. We're really talented for our level, and we've got some really great kids, and there's some young kids who are going to be some Division I guys. And, my quarterback's a Division I guy. We've got some players, but it's definitely not Clearwater Academy.
So we'll say, I don't know if it's 4 years, 5 years, whatever. When you found me, what was it? How'd you find me? And I remember we talked for a long time, but how'd you find me?
Yeah. So again, like we talked about at the beginning, always looking for things that are different. I think I'm unique in that, like, if something's going wrong, I'm usually going to be the one to point the finger at myself. I'm not going to blame the kids, which I think we see pretty eye to eye in that. But I believe it was 2020, and we just had a lot of soft tissue stuff, and we just really kind of turned the finger at ourselves and looked at the microscope and said, what are we doing wrong? This is not chance. This is not bad luck. Like, we are actually doing something that is giving these kids, more of a chance to get injured. And we just we've always had a small roster, but it got to the point where we were struggling to structure practice based on the numbers that we had of guys who were available. And so I just did a deep dive and just said, somebody else has to be having this problem. I can't remember if somebody referred me to you or if I just found you by searching around the internet, but it just kind of clicked. Like, I read that first article, one of your more famous ones. And like, I think I stayed up all night just reading as much as I could, because it just fascinated me that there was another way of doing things that could potentially benefit the kids.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think there are maybe 10 reasons why people might be searching for sprint-based football. Yeah. But it's interesting that the injury thing, I think that's one of the keys, absolutely one of the keys. But it was the injury thing that drove you to look around. And tell me about the changes you made and the results that you got injury-wise.
Yeah. So, I mean, immediately we're changing the practice structure. I remember calling in the coaching staff and just being like, guys, some of you might be very uncomfortable with what I'm about to say, but we're going to make a wholesale change. And I think it's going to be what gives us a chance to succeed. And we dove in and we eliminated going in pads every single day. We went, I think at that point, we may have moved to only once a week to kind of overdo it in the beginning and then scaled it back up to 2 times a week. But we stopped taking guys to the ground. Like we never, I mean, since then, besides the year where I was an offensive coordinator, I've never been around a team that takes guys to the ground in practice and outside of a really, really controlled tackling drill, and what you and I have talked about before, just in terms of how many hard days are you going to go, how many days or how many performance days can you really get in? And I think before that was one of the biggest shifts of every day was a performance day, and the old misnomer of practice has to be harder than the game, and I think those two things shifted in my head. I was able to convey that to the coaches with, a little bit of disagreement in the beginning, but everybody was aware that we had to make a change. So they were willing to try, but the results happened pretty immediately. The injuries went down, the guys started coming back, and, we were able to actually have a successful season. I think because we started the season pretty banged up, but as it went, we started to win more games and get healthier. And not only that, but like I've heard you guys talk about it before, but like coaches are having more fun, players are energized, like kids are excited about playing football again.
Yeah, I was just thinking in my head that these things are not all separate islands, that they're interlinked, that you could say I'm sick and tired of 10 to 20% of my roster being banged up. And so you reach out to me after you read new ideas for old school football coaches. And you realize that if every day is like a 10, if your attempt is every day is a performance day and every day is harder than the games, you're going to get banged up. It's like, if every day is a performance day, then none of the days are performance days. And so instead you go the high-low thing where you have performance days and fundamental days, but it is interlinked because you won't practice as long.
Yeah.
Which gives your kids, I think practice is more enjoyable. A 90-minute practice is more fun than a 3-hour practice. And I think it's more enjoyable for kids, and we reflect the kids and the kids reflect us. And so all of a sudden there's this practice is the best part of their day. And then they go into games healthier and batteries fully charged, and you're getting faster throughout the season. And so they're all interrelated.
I couldn't agree more. My strength coach and him and I were talking last night. I told him I was coming on, Julian Baldy, who does an amazing job for us. And he goes, his new saying that he said yesterday, I think I'm now turning it into a saying. It's like, we just want the kids fresh, not fried. And I was like, man, I was like, I need that on a freaking t-shirt. But it just fits into everything that we do and everything that you do and all the Feed the Cats coaches. It's like, these kids are fresh on Friday. They're going to play fast. They're going to make plays. They're going to have fun. And we're going to have a lot of running clocks, like we're going to win a lot of games, and that's definitely been true for us to start the season. And I think people ask all the time, like, are you winning? Are you happy because you're winning? Or are you winning because you're happy? And I think that really ties into a lot of this as well. Like our kids are genuinely happy to walk into the football facility every single day. And I think it's, of course you win, when you win, you're happy. But I think there's truths to both sides. And our kids love being there. And I think it's a lot of just how we run the program based on a lot of your principles.
That slogan that Julian came up with was fresh, not fried.
Yeah. I was like, it's so good, right?
So good. That's like, not only is that a decent t-shirt, that's a fantastic t-shirt. And I may steal that and just put Julian Baldy in like real small letters underneath it. I have t-shirts that say cats don't jog, F the grind. Well, fresh not fried may be the number 2 t-shirt of all times up. Remember the Catholics versus convicts t-shirt? That sold quite a few t-shirts. Fresh not fried may sell more than Catholics versus convicts. And of course, I'm alluding to the Notre Dame versus Miami. Yeah. The great 30 for 30 that I just watched again the other day. Incredible. I think whenever we start talking about fun, I just posted on Twitter something about the Toronto Maple Leafs had up on their wall. That stuff sells, and that stuff is so internalized with all of us. And when football coaches who wear t-shirts that say grind and grit, when they hear, like people like me and you talk about fun, they immediately see like woke, BS, soft. Yep. You understand what I'm saying? So your football players are having fun. Are they soft on defense?
No, I mean, these kids are rallying to the football, knocking people. Like, if we have an issue, we're a little too over the edge on defense sometimes, like we're the opposite of soft. So to your point, it's related.
I love asking coaches that question because most Feed the Cats sprint-based football coaches, when I ask them that, they actually kind of like want to come through our computer screen right now and like show how violent, like don't be calling me soft, And it's really crazy that Lombardi, one of my favorite quotes of all times, that fatigue makes cowards of us all. It is so true. And like you can take the toughest son of a gun in the world and get him jet lagged, physically tired, mentally tired, and he's just not as tough as he was at his best. And so the idea that somehow we are going to fry our kids, burn the steak every day, and then they're going to magically become tough and fast in games is just backwards thinking.
That's totally backwards. And I think so many of these coaches think that they're like psychologists, and they can like tap into the psyche of these kids. And like, it's just a lot of BS. You know what I mean? Like if you do things the right way and take care of the kids, show them that you care and train the right way, like the results are going to come, Like I don't try and get too much into the mental stuff. Like it's just, we take really good care of the kids. They're having a blast. We care about them on and off the field. We train them the right way. We have good schemes. Like the rest takes care of itself. The results are there.
One of the things that a really great point that coaches bring up to me when they're defending traditional football is that if your kids totally believe they've outworked the competition and they put up four fingers, start the fourth quarter, there is power to that. We deserve this. I always say that the military model, when soldiers go through really hard things, when men go through really hard things together, they bond.
Yeah.
And so those are powerful. I understand that there's bonding and torturing your kids at the end of practice every day. And there's we deserve to win feeling. Did you have to talk much about convincing kids that teams that we play are going to outwork us, but we're still going to win the fourth quarter?
Not really. No, like they just buy in, like I think like I will say what's been really uniquely refreshing for me is we've had a lot of, I'm in a new school. We had a lot of transfers come in, right? So it was a really cool sample study to be able to see what these kids who had been in other programs do, what they come to appreciate. And so we kind of just almost didn't talk about it a ton, because I kind of just wanted to see how it was going to go. And like the raving reviews are unreal. Like I've had so many families come up to me after a parent meeting or after a game and be like, my kid is having so much fun. Like he's working his butt off, but like, the work is different, like when we're working, when we're not, we're not, and I think that models all the Feed the Cats programs, but like all these families are like, thank you for giving my son back. Like he's enjoying football. Like he comes home every day happy. And I don't know, call me crazy, but I think a kid who's really happy to be at practice every day, when we ask him to run really fast, he's going to do it.
Yes, I think, happy coaches, happy athletes, and it's happy in like a cutthroat competition type of happy. Right. It's not a birthday happy. It's not like goof around, grab ass. This is having fun doing manly stuff, collisions and being challenged. And I don't think people understand that. And I think that the whole thing about those kids going home happier, I don't think we really look ourselves in the mirror sometimes in these traditional programs and saying, my kids are miserable. And we just kind of say, okay, that's the grind. That's what you signed up for. Man up and get through it, go through hell to play in the games. So yeah, it's bizarre to me that nobody ever looks at that. What's been like the hardest conversations you've had to have in defending yourself?
I think just with some of the older school coaches, like that's the toughest thing. Like I think it's really easy to get the kids on board with it. Like I said, you don't really have to explain it that much. It's really just a brief conversation of, hey, this is how we're going to structure things. Today's a light day. This is going to be a performance day. And everybody, like Coach Juice does a good job. It's just like, we're going to get you fresh on Friday and you're going to feel great, And like, as you and I talked earlier this year, we talked to the kids a little bit just as we were able to incorporate some of the metrics that you and I were talking about. And all it took was one conversation. They're easy, but some of the older school coaches, that's been the bigger challenge, just in terms of explaining why and backing it up with data. And I think it's one of those things where they don't really believe it until they see it. So it's going to take a couple of weeks of practicing the way that I want to practice until some of those older school guys are able to get on board with it.
Now, you mentioned data, and I remember talking to Joey Gracio when he was at Florida Atlantic, and I was like, how do you argue with like all the college football? The higher you go, the more conservative football coaches are.
Yeah.
You do not find Hal Mumme coaching at Georgia, or Alabama, and they become almost like caricatures of traditional football at the highest levels. If you want to find creative people, you go D3 football in college, you go to high school coaches like you. And I think that whole mentality is something that just gets lost. So circling back to data, Joey Gracio said to convince coaches, you have to have data.
Yeah.
What kind of data do you have?
I mean, I think I really showed a lot of the results just in terms of the injuries that I had at Clearwater Academy and what we were able to change from my first conversation with you. And then Julian's got a lot of data as well. Just like now, like even I'm so excited because he's doing such a good job of collecting data right now that as I hire new guys, the data is going to be overwhelmingly obvious. Like right now, we've had 0 concussions. We've had, ever since we talked this summer, we've had 0 soft tissue injuries. We had in the spring game, we had 0 cramps. And like we're talking about a team that doesn't condition. Like he wanted me to make sure I said that we do not condition it in the traditional sense of the word, We don't do any of these things. We do our model and the data is backing it up. Like our kids are healthy. They're ready to go. Like we very rarely have to not have somebody available for a practice. And I think that's the most valuable data that we can have.
I came to the conclusion just a couple of weeks ago that when kids are rested, fresh, healthy, fast, they typically are bulletproof.
Yeah, agreed. 100%. I mean, these kids, and like you asked earlier, like it's not for lack of toughness. Like these kids are flying around 1,000,000 miles an hour, throwing their bodies on the line on Friday. But I think just when you take the aggregate of it over the week, like, we're not seeing live bullets every single day of the week. So like that allows them to be a little bit more fresh, to be able to go out and take it out on somebody. And I always, like the first time I did it where we limited the contact, I was so worried. I was so worried about how physical are we going to be on Friday. And I tell you, the first time we did it where we didn't go live in fall camp ever, I think that was the most physical week 1 game I've ever been a part of because they just wanted to hit somebody. Like they were just chomping at the bit to be able to get that part of the game,
That's so counterintuitive, right?
It is. But football coaches are counterintuitive people,
I love that. Always wants to know practice stuff, and I think I'm always saying that, Feed the Cats, sprint-based football is a way to cook. It's not a recipe, but people really want the recipe. Tell me your recipe for a game week, Monday through Friday. What's your idea?
So and we've talked about doing this a lot of different ways. What we've settled on, which we found to be really good for a lot of different reasons. You really, like when you structure a week of practice, you have to consider so much data, right? I think the first and foremost thing that we wanted to put in and implement, and myself and Coach Juice and talking to you this summer, was 2 performance days of practice, no more than 2, right? And so that means we're going to have 2 light days. Then you have to ask yourself, where do I put these light days, right? Where do I put these days? But not also light days, but not lose the day, right? You have to find a way to make it productive. And I think that's kind of the secret to the sauce, is to make sure that you are still really, really productive to those days. And I think the old school coaches, they hear 2 performance days, they're losing their mind thinking, well, we're only practicing twice a week. Like I find we're just as productive on our light days as we are on our volume days. They're just different types of production. So what we went to is Monday is a light day for us, and we go hard on Tuesday and Wednesday. And like you and I talked about, with that Wednesday is a little bit lighter than Tuesday, knowing that we did burn a steak a little bit the day before. But I think that model works the best for us, just in terms of like it really matches the game planning philosophy as well. Just in terms of Monday is going to be a day where we get our corrections done. Monday is going to be a day where we're walking through any new schemes. And like, it's a mental Monday, like we call it mental Monday. We call it Tell the Truth Monday, where we tell the good, the bad, and the ugly from the day before. And then we get back out on that field and it becomes mental Monday. And, we're really just evolving the mind. And even when we do stuff a little bit faster, it is situational football. We get a little bit of red zone stuff done where the kids don't actually have to open up and do anything, but we've installed the schemes for the red zone on Monday. And that's not an area where you have to open up and, burn the steak, so I think that's kind of the best thing that we've done, is be clever about where we put the situational stuff to kind of ease off the gas a little bit physically.
I think that's fascinating that you say that those low days, and sometimes people call them non-sprint days. I call them now fundamental days.
Yeah.
There are so many intricacies of football that have to be addressed, and maybe they're not addressed best in a performance type setting.
I fully agree with that. Fully, 100%.
So the whole idea that we're going to practice, 2 hours a day or 3 hours a day, and every practice looks like, yesterday's practice is not the way you do it. Now, do you actually tell kids on performance day, hey, lace them up tight, man, this is a performance day? Do you actually tell them that?
Oh yeah, every day. I mean, Julian does a great job of that, warming the guys up before practice. He's as juiced up as they come. He's excited saying, hey, today's a go day. We're live, we're rolling. We got the music blaring. Like, we've created that environment of competition on those days. And anybody who calls us soft, like, come watch us practice. We get after it for sure. We just do it our way.
And the Juice is actually Julian's nickname, right?
Yep, Coach Juice. If you're ever around him on any moment of any day, you'll understand why he's Coach Juice. He's the man. He's energized through and through.
And you say that your Wednesday practice is also a performance day, but it's maybe a 0.5 or a 0.6?
Correct. I would say it's probably about a 0.6 in terms of the volume based on what we would do on Tuesday. Like, Tuesday is always going to be the hardest day of the week. And Wednesdays, we're going, but it's scaled back. And there's more teachable moments on things that we can slow it down and do the teaching in rather than having to be all gas the whole time.
Some people think performance days must be, really, really hard volume wise. And that's not really what we're talking, is it? It's more like the crispness, the performance level routes, finishing plays as a running back, sprinting to the ball. You are practicing game speeds on performance day. Does it require actually more recovery between those high intensity things inside of practice than you actually get in a game?
Yeah, I think so. It does. And you have to be able to structure the practice that way, And so, like, a lot of people will structure their practice where they do their individuals, right? And then it builds to team. And then it's just an hour and a half of straight team where it's just bang, 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 bang. Those kids never get any reps, or rest, not reps. And so for me, we've really just kind of tailor-made it to be where I heard Nebraska coaches talk back in the day when Scott Frost was there, just in terms of they're going to do something, they're a tempo operation, which we are as well. And I think you have to be more clever when you're a tempo operation. But, we're going to go really fast. We're going to take a break and we're going to get to some other drill that takes the pressure off their legs and allows them to recharge the batteries.
So not only is there a wave action practice to practice, but internally in that performance practice, you can't be at the top, you can't be at the crest for 2 hours. No. You just can't do it. You have to understand that if you are going to perform, kids must be recovered.
Yeah, has to be. And the quality of the practice goes up when you do it that way as well. Like, I think one of the biggest mistakes that I used to make is just trying to get a volume of reps on those performance days. Like, that was one of the metrics that you and I talked about in terms of what is a proper number, what is a number of plays. If I'm plotting out and I'm scripting practice, which I always do, like, what is an acceptable number? And I think finding that number for us being, a lot closer to 50% of game day than 100% has totally transformed the program.
So your volume of practice is more like 50% of game?
Yeah, I would say it's about 50% or less.
That's mind-blowing to old school coaches who believe that practice should be harder than games.
Yeah.
Maybe they were 1.5 game volume, or, like, God forbid, I've seen some coaches go probably 3 times game volume in one practice. And that, I think that not only ruins the next day's practice, but probably ruins 2 days of practice.
Agreed. I mean, if you're going 1.5, you're probably ruining 2 days. And then, of course, those guys are going to do it again. So they're not going to be fresh on Friday.
And those same coaches that do that, they totally understand. They're not dumb people. They totally understand that Saturday and Sunday are really important for high school football teams to recover. But the same idea should be in practice as well, because if Monday ruins Tuesday and Tuesday ruins Wednesday and Wednesday ruins Thursday, then you are not going into Friday at 100%.
No, couldn't agree more. It's just, but like, what I love about what you said is, like, these aren't dumb guys. You know what I mean? Like, there is logic in what they're saying. It's just different, Like, I don't know. I'm just kind of an understanding person. Like, I like to be able to see why people are doing things. There's always a reason. There's a positive reason to why they're trying to do some things that they're doing, but the effectiveness of it is just pretty debatable in life.
Yeah, it's just so hard to go through 10, 20 years of playing football and coaching football.
Yeah.
And, like, buying in. All great athletes have to buy in. All great assistant coaches have to buy in. Vertical alignment. We all have to be thinking the same way to then say, Gosh, I think I've been wrong for the last 20 years. I think there's a better way to do it.
Yeah. But I don't think too many people like to say, hey, I've been wrong. You know what I mean? Like, and I actually make a point of that to my kids and my coaches at the beginning. I'm like, hey, if I do something wrong, I'll be the first one to tell you. But I think when you create that culture, it creates a lot of accountability for the kids. And they're now the ones who say, hey, coach, they get to the sideline. Yeah, missed the read on that. I was looking at the corner and not the safety, and now we've kind of created this culture of responsibility and accountability just from the sense of, hey, it's okay to be wrong. And as long as you learn from it.
I love that. Coaches, Titan GPS is the ultimate tool for football programs, including back-to-back Minnesota State champion Stewartville High School, a leader in sprint-based football. Built specifically for high school football, Titan tracks the metrics that matter: top speed, explosive acceleration, speed repeatability, and the game-changing truck stick. Titan's easy-to-use system delivers actionable insights at a glance, and their exceptional customer service ensures you're supported every step of the way. With built-in leaderboards to fuel competition and unmatched accountability, because the eye in the sky doesn't lie, champions trust Titan GPS, proudly made in the USA. Ready to join the best? Message them on X at Titan Sensor today to get started. I was going to ask you, I know like Brad Dixon, he talks a lot about pregame warm-up and how crazy it is for so many teams to be out warming up at 5:00 for a 7:30 game. And they're out there, like running 20,000 pass routes, and you're so excited. There's nothing better than Friday under the lights for a high school kid. I still get the same feeling, even if I'm not playing. It's just so fun. Tell me about your warm-ups.
I mean, one of my favorite stories of warm-ups and how I kind of got to this is from one of my old coaches. You can actually see the photo of me and him behind me over here. It's Coach Rich Stubler. He was a CFL defensive coordinator for 30 years. He won 5 Grey Cups with 5 different programs up there. I'll never forget. This is 2022. He's my DC for the first year. And I'm like, hey, Rich, what do you want to do for warm-ups? He's an older school guy, and I'm kind of thinking like maybe longer routine. And he said, if we have to do a damn thing other than just line up on Friday, he's like, I've done a bad job. He's like, if you give me 0 minutes or 5 minutes, he's like, none of that matters. He's like, we don't need to do a thing. Like, just have a strength staff, get them ready for the game, and we'll go play. And so that, along with, all the Beat the Cat stuff and just listening to Brad talk and some of these guys, like, our warm-ups are nothing. We're out there. I think the best thing of what we do is, Juice does a great job of getting them ready to go and making sure that the bodies are right. And after that, we're just reviewing a couple things that we feel that need to be walked through on the day of the game. Quarterback warms up his arm a little bit. We go into the locker room and we relax. Like, there's almost nothing to it.
Yeah, and I can kind of picture your locker room's probably not the bang your head against the locker type of madness that so many football programs go through. And I think a lot of them go through that because they're so fried going into the game.
Artificially get yourself ready when you're not ready,
Yeah, when your body is sluggish, maybe you do need to bang your head against lockers and things, but we both know that just doesn't last very long, and those kids will be slow in the game. And
I just seeing the poster behind you kind of made me think of if you walked into our locker room before the game, we look like a bunch of cats lounging around. Like we're locked in and we're ready to go. They're excited. There's music playing, but they're just relaxed. There's like a calm before the storm, where these kids, they know they've done everything that they need to do all week. They're prepared. Their bodies are fresh. And as soon as Juice blows the whistle and it's time to go outside, you'll see some energy from these kids every single time.
It's almost like they're uncaged.
Yep, that's exactly what it is. I mean,
exactly. Oh, I love that. And, that's also that relaxed state is actually a performance state. That I made the mistake. I really believed until I was 55 years old that the job of a coach was to raise adrenaline levels of athletes, until I was told by a guy named Douglas Heel, who introduced me to Be Activated, which became RPR, is that excited state is sometimes seen as excitement, but it's really a state of fear.
Right.
It is fight, flight, or freeze. Everybody forgets the third F. And that's not a performance state. Fear is not a state of performance. So that locker room that you describe, laying around like lounge cats is actually creating a performance state. You want the opposite of banging your heads against blockers.
Yeah, exactly. No, you want these kids to be, I mean, you talk about these athletes and you hear some of these great coaches, Pete Carroll and some of these guys, they talk about the mentality of like what makes great performances. And like you hear all these athletes talk about that flow state that they find. I don't think you find flow state by banging your head on a locker. When I played my best, I was the most relaxed when I was a player, which is short lived, but I would find kind of a happy space on the field, walk around, chop it up with the buddies a little bit, and just get locked in and go. I think people overdo it. You know what I mean? There's not that much to it. You know what I mean? Like, and as coaches, we want to overanalyze everything and find all these really smart ways of going about things. But I think in terms of pregame, there's not much to it. Like, get the kids lined up, make sure they're warmed up, let them relax a little bit, let them experience the fanfare a little bit and be outside. Like, to be honest, I think half of why we're outside for as long as we are is just let the kids soak it all in. It's Friday Night Lights. You only get one of these a week. And that might be the most important part of what we do pregame. Just enjoy the moment.
Yeah, I love you mentioned flow state. That flow thing is just so important. There's a true story. Joe Montana was in the huddle in the Super Bowl going on a game-winning drive. And during a timeout, he points up in the stand and says, guys, look, that's John Candy up there. He was like picking faces out of the crowd. He was just in a flow state. And I think that people don't realize when you're adrenaline-ridden, fight or flight or freeze, you collapse. A state of fear, your vision, you're not seeing some face up in the stands. So
Agreed.
I love all that. Now, we haven't talked much about your team this year. How much success have you had so far?
So we started out, we won our preseason game, and then we won our first 4 regular season games. So we're 4-0, and we have had a running clock in every single one of our regular season games so far.
Do other teams hate you?
I wouldn't say they love us right now. We're nice guys, so they kind of find a way to appreciate us. But no, I don't think they're too happy about what we're doing right now.
So you're averaging over 40 a game?
Yeah, over 40 a game. Yeah, our quarterback is the number 4 quarterback in the state of Florida right now in terms of passing yards, and we're lighting it up offensively and defensively for sure.
Now, you talked about at Clearwater International, you had like 19 D1 in your senior class alone. How many D1 players do you have this year?
I think we have 6 on the team that have offers right now. There's some young bucks that are going to come up that are going to be recruitable guys. We've got a couple of young studs that are going to be big names in the future as well. We're talented for sure. We're very, very surprised how fast we've been able to turn this thing around.
Here's a silly question. Those 6 guys that already have offers, are any of them a step slow?
No, they're flying. Keyshawn Burke's number 1 on our team. He's the number 1 receiver on our team, right? We talked about this in the summer. He's kind of our Travis Hunter, right? He's our number 1 receiver right now. And then he turns around as the number 1 corner, right? And so how we like Julian is in charge of managing Keyshawn during the week in terms of not overloading his volume. And you have to be even more careful for those guys because they're getting reps on both sides of the ball. So when you look at their metrics of what are they doing in a given day, they could be double if you don't do it right. And so we're really smart about how we manage him. But he's a guy who ran almost 22 miles an hour for us this offseason. You could turn on the tape. He ain't a step slow. He's faster on Friday than he is any other day of the week.
Yeah, that's a great topic here because I get a lot of questions like, Coach, I'm at a small school. We have like 7 guys going both ways. Don't they need double the conditioning? And you would say, no, it's like opposite.
Opposite. Yep. Flip that on its head.
Flip it on its head. And it's not only for that guy to not be fried going into Friday night, but also anytime you start frying kids, when you start burning the steak, they get hurt. And I would say that that kid playing both ways for you is kind of an important player for you.
Yeah. I mean, if we lose him, we lose 2 players, not 1. That's really the way that you have to look at it. And so his health, and then we have 2 two-way starters right now. Keyshawn Burks and Alex Malisco, tight end linebacker. Like those 2 guys are the guys. Julian, it is your job to make sure these guys get fresh to Friday. Because if we lose both of those, we lose 4 players, not 2. They're that valuable to the team.
Now, you said earlier, you brought up that you're a high-tempo team.
Yeah, we are. We go fast.
That's the other question I get all the time. Coaches will say crazy things like, we snap the ball every 8 seconds or something. I'm like, no, you don't. But anyway, I understand the intent is to run as many plays as possible. And they said, so we have to condition our kids. I agree with so many of the things you say, but we have to condition those kids more. And you probably don't.
No. I mean, we don't condition. We don't believe in that. Like our tempo, here's the thing about tempo that I think most people don't understand. And this drives me crazy. Most people think the way to go faster is to just yell at the kids to go faster. Like, the way to run an up-tempo offense is to be an up-tempo program, meaning like there's mechanics of getting in and out of, if you ever huddle, you have to get in and out of the huddle really fast. Like, we do a little sugar huddle that we do that, like, details of how we do our no huddle are coached ad nauseum. And that is how you go fast. It's not by overdoing the conditioning or screaming at the kids to go faster. It's, who do you get the football? Which referee do we get the football to? And how do you turn to the sideline and get the signal? And what is your body position? And how do you, as an offensive lineman, know when the ball goes to the other hash? How do you get there? And if you're not in the fight of that play, don't worry about it and just go get lined up for the next snap. All these little tempo pieces are the things that allow you to be a great tempo program, not just running the kids into the ground and saying go faster.
Now, do you, with your tempo stuff, do you coach some cheats with
Mhm.
tempo where guys are encouraged at times to loaf and not run? You do that?
I think it fits. Like, the system that we run it's a college system. It's Art Briles was kind of the godfather of this offense, and the old school coaches would hate this. You would love this, but he would run vertical option routes to one side of the field where those receivers are live, and the other side of the receivers are taking the play off, where they're literally just hanging out. And like, the thought process on it is like, hey, the corner is being graded on effort on every play. Who's over the guy who's quote unquote loafing, right? He's got the play off, but the corner is being graded and he's going to get dog cussed if he's not running over to make a tackle. Where our guy is chilling, feeding the cat. Our cat is stretching and ready and yawning, and all of a sudden we're running a vertical route to that guy on the next play where the guy over him just had to run 40, 40, 40. And so I think the system that we run fits the whole philosophy as well, so we're not overdoing it.
I love that concept that basically you're taking advantage of the other team's motto to sprint to the ball on
Yep.
every play. Your guys are not sprinting to the ball on every play.
No. When we're running the ball, our receivers better be physical and spring touchdowns. But when they are instructed not to be running on the play, they better not be running on the play. There's benefits to all of it, and you got to be able to find the good in it, make sure that it works.
Now, you mentioned you had no cramps, which is amazing, right? Because we see cramps in the third quarter of college games, and you know that they've been worked to death. Explain to me why you guys didn't cramp.
I mean, it's because of the way that we train. We don't overdo it. Like, these kids are not burnt out. And so the body is ready to roll, and we stress hydration, and we stress, Julian's really big on all the little things. And so these kids actually, like, they're not overtrained. Their bodies are taken care of. And when it comes to Friday, they're fresh. They're not cramping up.
And in practice, wouldn't you say that they are achieving game speeds?
They are. We're definitely achieving game speeds in practice. There's no question about it.
And so I always say the old school coaches have worked their kids so hard that all they can get out of them is effort.
Yeah.
The idea that you are getting speed and like game speed efforts, game intent from them in your performance practices, in a way conditions your kids
It does.
for the game demands.
Yeah. No, I mean, like Julian talks about, like, we have to be able to run full speed in practice. Otherwise, you can't simulate it. And then in the game, you're going to have some soft tissue stuff. You're going to cramp. You're going to hit all these problems if you can't simulate it in practice.
Do you do any sideline nutrition at all?
Sideline nutrition.
Yeah, like the honey sticks or anything like that?
There's a couple of little tricks that we do. Julian's a big salt guy. Like, he really believes in getting salt, pink Himalayan salt into the system. The kids call him the salt man.
The salt man, I love that. That's definitely old school. You're not old enough to remember taking salt tablets, right?
No, I did as a kid, actually, believe it or not. Yeah.
Yeah, salt tablets for every day in the 70s. You come in from practice and, you have a salt tablet.
I mean, what do you find in electrolytes? You're going to find salt. You're going to find magnesium. You're going to find all.
Yeah, Gatorade's just Kool-Aid with some salt in it.
Oh, and that's another one. Like, we will never have sugar before the performance. It's always going to be post, and so that's another one. Like, we just hired a new trainer, and she's like, I heard Coach Juice has a really firm stance on sugar. And I'm like, yeah, nothing before a game. Funny enough, we had a story where we played a game in Tennessee, and our kids somehow got into the Gatorade cooler before the game, and we cramped crazier than ever. Just unreal cramps that game. And ever since then, like the last school I was at, we would literally take blue painter's tape and tape up the coolers for Gatorade so nobody could bust into them until after the game.
So you're not probably going to be a sponsor for Gatorade after
No.
saying.
Hey, they can sponsor our post game, but they can't sponsor us again. That's for sure.
There you go. So, coach, if I was somebody that was an old school
Right.
66-year-old football coach who practices 2 hours on Monday, 3 hours on Tuesday, 3 hours on Wednesday, we hit on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. We bring our kids in the morning after a game to run them and do a film session and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, what in the hell is this feed the cats, sprint based football stuff? What would be your elevator speech to him?
I mean, I would say to him, I mean, I'm a big question guy. So I would say, how much really, like, let's sit down, let's look at your practice. Can we watch your film? Like, how much of this actually is quality? You know, that would be my first thing. Like, how much quality are we actually getting? You know, and I think that right there is going to create, some eye opening, moments where it's just like, there's no chance. I mean, there's no chance that you can have quality all week when you're doing it that way. So now we already understand that there's a problem, right? We have a quality problem. And then you're going to look at the game film and be able to say, well, how's your quality on Fridays? There's no way it's great, right? There's no way, because football is a game of execution, right? And when you're not able to execute in practice, how are you going to go out and execute on Friday? Like, it is just luck. You're just asking for luck at that point. But if you are not able to be fresh in practice, how's the execution going to be? Like you said, fatigue is going to make a fool out of all of us. So if we are practicing fatigued every single day, how is that execution going to be on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday? And if it ain't good on those days, it's not going to be good on Friday, and you got to be able to break it down like that and be able to look at the results and say, it's definitely stemming from a quality issue in practice. So if that's the case, how can we refigure out how to cook? What changes to the recipe can we make to make sure that practice is more effective? And is there a chance, coach, that if you don't run your kids into the ground and they're fresh, that they're going to be able to give you a little bit more? Are they going to be able to execute a little bit more? And my thing is, everybody's different. Like, you can't just tell somebody to do something. Everybody's kind of got to cognite for themselves on why. So you got to be able to assess it and see what problem somebody's having. And if you can actually figure out what problem somebody's having and kind of diagnose and trace it back to, any of the core principles that we follow, I think it would help be able to figure it out.
I really like that. I don't know if I've ever approached the argument with the singular word quality.
Yeah.
That I hit all around it and stuff. But what I like about what you just said to this old school coach is that you didn't say he's doing everything wrong.
No, because he's going to do some things, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's no question, but no, it's not about wrong. It's about different. Is there a more effective way?
Yeah. And it's kind of like we're saying that 10 hours of third gear is not as good as 5 hours of fifth gear.
That's exact. I love that. That's genius. And that would communicate to me, where I would be like, okay, there's something to it. How can I learn more?
And then coaches totally understand. I mean, I grew up with a coach, and then two of my mom's brothers were Hall of Fame football coaches at the high school level. And every coach will say, you're going to play like you practice, that quality is more important than quantity. So it's not that hard of an argument, because coaches have always said that for 100 years, that one of the smartest things I ever did with the relay exchanges, instead of saying we're going to do 5 of them, we need 5 reps, I simply said, we're going to do 1 perfect rep.
Right.
And I'm going to video. Oh my goodness. I didn't have to tell guys to put on their spikes. I didn't have to tell guys to care, to sprint with intent, to sprint fast. And all of a sudden it became almost like a game for them. 1 perfect rep. And it sounds like you're headed in that 1 perfect rep direction.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I mean, you're simulating the game.
What happens if you run a play poorly several times? What's your take?
We film every practice. We're going to coach it in the media. You know what I mean? Like, we're not going to just grind it. I used to do this. Let's say we're running inside zone and we just can't get it right. We're going to run it until we get it right, but that's just not our mentality anymore. We're a tempo team. So I think that kind of dovetails into that nicely anyways. We're the better tempo teams. Typically, if you're doing a tempo period, if one play is bad, you just play the next play.
That's counterintuitive as well. That's non-traditional. But I've heard many sprint-based football coaches say that they will not run a play 28 times to get it right.
No,
if you don't get it right, you blew your opportunity, guys, to get this play right, and you go on to the next one. And then you say you coach them up later?
Yeah. I mean, we film every practice with the drone. And so we meet every single day with our kids, like we're every single day, we're going to start our day with a meeting and we're going to show some clips of the good, the bad, and the ugly from the previous practice. And so we don't need to overdo it on the field because they're going to get that correction in film. And guess what? The next day, we're going to get some more reps of it and it's going to be better. Like one of our best practices was last week where I think it was a Wednesday where we took that performance day on a Tuesday and there were 5 key things that we wanted to hammer out. And we just hammered it in the film. And when we went out to the practice field, every single one of those things was corrected, not by running it a million times, but by just giving the kids the visual, right, of balancing the mass and the significance, meaning they get to actually see it and then they get the philosophy, right, of why we're doing the things that we're trying to do. And they go out and then execute. And that Wednesday was the best practice we had in a long time, just because I think, we didn't overdo Tuesday and we were able to show them the visual things of how they'd done it wrong.
Did you say that you film practices or video practices with a drone?
With a drone every day.
How common is that?
I think it's pretty common. It's getting more and more common for sure. I mean, in my friend group, for sure, I recommend to everybody to do it. We don't practice in our stadium. We practice on our practice field. So we don't have a raised structure that we would be able to film from. So we do it every practice. And if we're allowed to do it for a game, then we would as well.
That's fantastic. I don't know in Illinois, many of the schools I've talked to in Texas, they're using drone technology and it just sounds like a really smart thing to do.
I mean, just the visuals on it. Like you can see all 22 kids from any angle that you can possibly get, in the coaching, the tools that you can use to coach off of it are unbelievable. Now with Huddle and all the tech that we have, it's, there's a better way to teach now if you're using tech. There's no question.
So wrapping this thing up, where are you going to be in 10 years?
I don't know. To be honest, I'll be doing what I love, which is giving back to the game and helping kids. And I think that's always kind of the most important thing to me is I learned a lot through this game, and I'm an only child. So football is kind of family for me. So I get my fix through that and, just be able to give back to the youth and help kids and, help the next generation. I think I'll be doing that somewhere, for sure in 10 years.
Yeah. Your enthusiasm just exudes from you. And I would think you're a career coach.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've been coaching in some form or another since I was 14 years old. I turned 34 this year, so I've been doing it for 20 years and it doesn't feel like a job, it's something I love to do every day.
But you do realize that many traditional coaches trade basically their life for wins, their wife, their kids, their mental health. They drink too much, so your enthusiasm is largely based on kind of a feed the cats approach.
For sure.
You're taking care of yourself.
It's made me a happier coach. Like there's definitely years where I did not do it right, and I would be burnt out and miserable. Like I'm not going to sit here and say I've always been this enthusiastic, but I am this enthusiastic, and which is crazy to say, but my 20th season of coaching football, I'm more enthusiastic than I've ever been. And that's, I think, through refining the process and making it to be, what I want it to be.
That's a perfect ending point. It's so good. I love your ideas and I can't wait to talk to you again. I'd love to make it down to Petersburg and have all access in the locker room. And
oh yeah, time. If you come down, I will make sure we get a fresh, not fried in the St. Pete Catholic gold and black with your name on it.
I would love that. Thanks so much, Jesse. And we will talk again soon.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for everything that you do. And thanks for all the help that you've given me through the years, Coach. I really appreciate it.
Thank you again for listening to the Sprint-based football series on the Coach and Coordinator podcast. Be sure to check out our presenting sponsor, Titan GPS. It's used by Sprint-based football coaches to get better data and understand the player load and how they can adjust that over the course of the season. It'll help you find out a lot about your team. It's used by Garrett Muller, who's a 2-time state champion at Stewartville High School in Minnesota. He uses it for all kinds of things, like seeing how his team's speed is progressing over the course of the season. I could say that in 2024, they actually got faster over the course of the season following their sprint-based football recipe. Titan Sensors also has the popular truck stick metric designed specifically for football and inspired by sprint-based football. Follow all we're doing at coachandcoordinator.com. You can get our show notes there. We have articles on these episodes as well. And follow us on X at Coach K. Grabowski.
Con las grandes ofertas de Prime Big Deal Days este 7 y 8 de octubre, la grandeza está en tus manos. Así que si te encanta hornear, puedes conseguir una oferta en una nueva batidora de pie. Te transformará en el príncipe del pan.
¡Atención, atención! Abre paso al varón del brioche, al visconde del bizcocho y al conde de los cuernitos, miembro de Prime, Juan.
Sí, ¿hola?
Aprovecha hasta 40% de descuento en Prime Big Deal Days 7 y 8 de octubre. En Prime Big Deal Days este 7 y 8 de octubre, aprovecha grandes ofertas en un nuevo spa de pies. Te transformará en la reina de la relajación.
¡Espera! ¡Tiene chorros de burbujas!
Aprovecha hasta 40% menos en Prime Big Deal Days 7 y 8 de octubre.